I had just gotten home from a long night of stocking shelves at my local grocery store. I worked the closing shift, so I usually got home around midnight. I shared a cheap apartment with my roommate, Mark. We weren't in the best of neighborhoods, but I just felt lucky to have a place to live that wasn't my parents' basement. I threw my jacket on the coat rack next to the front door and walked into the kitchen to rummage through the fridge for something to eat. I had just pulled a frozen burrito out of the freezer when I noticed something weird. My bedroom door had been slightly open when I walked by the hallway. I know this doesn't sound strange at first, but I especially remembered closing it that morning when I left for work. I like my privacy, so I always remember to shut my door when I leave for the day. I stepped back into the living room and looked down the hall. "Hello?" I called. There was just dead silence. Not wanting to let the fear get the better of me, I walked across the living room and flicked on the hallway light switch. "Mark, is that you?" I asked. Mark had always been a bit of an odd guy, so I couldn't help but think that maybe he was trying to play some sort of weird prank on me. Maybe waiting to jump out of my closet or something when I entered my room. When I finally got to the bedroom door, I gently pushed it open. The light from the hallway illuminated a large portion of the room. I looked around, definitely feeling the creepy vibes. There was no one there, and nothing looked out of the ordinary. Just the usual, my twin bed, with my nightstand just to the left. I closed the door shut and walked back into the kitchen. I popped my dinner in the microwave and pressed the start button. While that was cooking, I turned on the television, ready to put on a scary movie to watch and relax. Suddenly, I heard a muffled thump coming from down the hall. At first, I thought it was the neighbors or something. They can be pretty loud sometimes, and it's not unusual to hear a loud bump in the night. But then it happened again, and this time I could tell for sure it was coming from down the hall. "Mark?" I called once more. The microwave beeped just then, and I nearly had a heart attack. "Yeah, sorry, dropped something," I could hear him say through the door. I'll admit, I felt a little better knowing that Mark was home. I walked back into the kitchen to get my food, and that's when my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a text message from Mark. "Hey dude, running a little late here at work. Could you please leave the door unlocked for me?" My stomach dropped to the floor and a chill ran down my spine. I texted back, "Wait, you're still at work?" He responded only a few seconds later, "Yeah, why?" At that moment, there was another noise from the hall and I looked up. The silhouette of a large man was standing there, holding what appeared to be a butcher's knife. I turned and ran towards the front door, hearing the heavy clunk of the man's boots behind me. He wasn't running. Instead, it sounded like he was slowly walking, taking his time. I didn't stop to look back. I ran down the emergency staircase and out into the parking lot where I called the cops. The cops showed up just a few minutes later. They went upstairs and searched my apartment, but they said they didn't find anyone. What they did find still terrifies me to this day. As they were searching the apartment, the cops found a note left on the kitchen table, held under a salt shaker. On that note, only one word was written: soon. I was 22, alone in my rental house, listening to music on my PC in the back room. Outside the door to this room was a long hallway which led to more rooms and the living room. So the back room that I was in was away from everything else in the house. I took my headphones off to go and get a drink when I heard the sound of a woman crying. It got louder as I walked to the door, but at the same time it sounded far away. I know that sounds weird, but it was weird. Before I could open the door, I heard 4 loud footsteps in the hallway, almost like something running towards my door. The crying noises stopped on the last step. There I was, standing with my hand outstretched to open the door, frozen with fear and trying to get the balls together to open the door. After a few seconds, I composed myself and expected to see someone on the other side of the door. So I opened the door abruptly and the hallway was empty. The entire house was locked up and I had no pets. I heard the crying noises again, randomly throughout the rest of my tenancy at that house. But the noise of those steps behind the door will stay with me forever. I like to think I'm pretty skeptical and logical about things, but I just can't explain what I heard that day. About 4 years ago, I was home alone and was unpacking mine and my girlfriend's things into our first ever apartment. It was my first day living there and I was basking in my newfound independence when all of a sudden, I get an anonymous call on my cell phone. I answer it thinking it might be important, but it was not. It was some lady calling to do a medical survey. Now, normally, I would hang up immediately, but I was in a really good mood, so I decided to play along and answer her questions. The lady on the other line asked me more questions than I expected, and I was itching to hang up the phone until something very sudden and uncomfortable happened that still till this day makes me shudder. I was sitting in the living answer her survey questions to the best of my ability. At some point, she started asking me about my physiological well-being, and right when I was about to answer a sound, which I could only describe as someone exhaling menacingly. This sound was coming from the kitchen, from around the corner, and continued until I quickly turned around in fear. I then told the lady on the other line to please stop talking for a minute while I tried to collect my thoughts and think about my next action. The room became silent, and I could do nothing but investigate that terrifying noise. I walked around the corner of the room toward the kitchen to find absolutely nothing, which didn't help my paranoia at all. I was shaking, and the lady on the other line was confused and asked if I was all right. For some reason or another, I told her what just happened, and she really didn't know what to do, and I had a feeling that she desperately wanted to hang up the phone. Ironic, I know. Multiple thoughts were running through my mind like, is this apartment haunted? Did the lady on the phone know? Am I going crazy? As soon as the second thought snapped through my brain, I immediately ended the call and didn't feel right for 2 weeks. I lived in that apartment for 1 year, and nothing weird like that ever happened again. I tried to deduce what could have made that sound and even go so far as to replicate the sound from the same spot. But nothing.